My childhood best friend, Marie, and I were around 11 or 12 years old at the time. Marie's family had their own campsite in a provincial park about 2 hours from our hometown and would spend the entire summer each year living in their camper out there. This particular summer, I was able to go and stay with them for a week, and we were excited to spend our time adventuring around the forest. On the last night that I was there, we decided that we wanted to hurry down to the ice cream shop by the lake before it closed. It was early evening at this point, still pretty bright out but beginning to lose light. The path we took was down a short slope right next to the main road, with maybe 10 feet of thick brush and trees in between. On the other side was a forest with more tall, thick brush. So we were walking along, not seeing a single other person on the path in front or behind us, and we hear a sudden rustling and snapping of branches, similar to the sound of maybe a deer moving through the woods. We wouldn't have thought anything of it, but then the sound of running footsteps follows. Marie glances back and suddenly grabs my arm, urging me under her breath not to look back. At the same time, the running stops. I don't know why I didn't ignore her and get a look myself. I guess I could sense the very real fear in her voice, and I just chose to listen. We both start to panic, getting that feeling like when you're running up the stairs after turning the basement light off. We pick up speed as much as we can without breaking into a sprint, knowing the ice cream shop is only about a minute's walk away. The path soon breaks, and now we're in the parking lot. Suddenly, Marie steers me hard to the left, heading towards the lake and the boat rental instead of continuing straight to the ice cream shop, and I go along with it silently, understanding that ice cream is no longer an interest for us right now. Marie is clearly panicking at this point. We're both looking around, but it seems whatever scared her is nowhere in sight now. Marie walks up to the boat rental and gets us a kayak, and we climb in and begin to paddle out into the middle of the lake. As we paddle, she tells me that there was a man behind us and that the man had stopped running at us very abruptly upon making eye contact with her. He had been wearing a long black coat with his hood up despite it being the middle of July. He had a terrible smirk on his face, and she swore that as soon as he stopped running, she saw him put something shiny away in his coat. He appeared to have just emerged out of the bushes after we walked past, given the sounds that we heard right before he came running onto the path. We reach the center of the lake and we stop paddling. I pull out my Nokia brick phone that my parents had, thank God, given me just in case. I hand it to Marie and I tell her to call her parents to come pick us up. As the phone rings, I see her look out past me to the shore and go pale. Lifting a hand to point to what she's seeing, I turn and I finally get to see the man. He's stalking his way around the path that circled the edge of the lake, staring out at us. We sat in the middle of the lake and watched him do 2 full laps, never looking away from us, before finally disappearing. It took a few tries to get a hold of her family, and we were freaking out so bad the whole time as the sun got lower and lower. We did manage to have someone come with the truck, but by the time we reached the shore, it was pretty dark outside. I don't know what we would have done if we hadn't have been able to call for a ride. Looking back, I don't know why we didn't just go into the ice cream shop and inform an adult there and ask her parents to come get us then. But it worked out. We got back safe, and we thankfully never saw that man again. I decided to drive to the largest forest in my country in hopes of getting back in touch with nature, needing to clear my head. I asked the local forestry office the best place for a quick walk off the main trails and was directed to this picturesque spot a little ways down the road. There was no reception, and with the rare bit of blue sky that we get in the UK, I was glad I made the spontaneous trip. And as I walked further down the path, I saw a clearing in the trees to my right. Since the plan was to get closer with nature, I ventured into the trees off the beaten path. It was great. I explored the area. I listened to the birds as they swooped from branch to branch, even got a good 5 minutes of meditation in before I heard what sounded like two animals fighting. I assumed they were just foxes and moved on. I unexpectedly reached this sand road as I emerged from the trees, but decided to walk along it for a moment as I scanned for an entry back into the forest on the other side of the road. But as I looked around, I spotted a bra dangling from the bush near the road. Now, I'm aware people go to the forest for all sorts of reasons, but this did put me slightly on edge. As I turned around, I heard an electric car making its way up the road, and by the time I heard it, it was less than 300 yards away. My instincts told me to hide or just avoid being seen, but there was no time. So I quickly gave a polite nod as he passed and made my way in the opposite direction. He parks up behind me, just out of view. I begin to make my way off the road, intending to go explore further, but when I saw the car, for a moment, doing a 180-degree turn and then parking again, something told me to turn around and go back the way I came. As I made my way back onto the road, I spot this man in a white shirt behind the bush that the bra was hanging from. He was going in the direction that I just changed course from. I crossed the road and made my way back into the forest that I had arrived on the sand road from. When I got slightly further in, I turned around to check if the man continued in the opposite direction, but he didn't. Instead, I see that he's also crossed the road and is making his way into the part of the woods that I entered. By this point, I knew that I was being followed. There was no way he coincidentally went one way and then turned to head into this part of the forest that I entered. But I kept my pace brisk rather than running. My physical health can go south quick. My knees are brittle and my ankles are weak, so rushing could cost me, especially since I still had to reach my car and drive away. As I traveled further, he was always following. I was cursing my luck as I made my way to the end of that section of the forest, just before the path that was after a large patch of grass and shrubbery. But as I looked back, I couldn't see him. I stopped for longer than I should have, scanning the trees and listening intently, but I hear nothing, and I see nothing. I make my way back onto the path with some relief and turn one last time to check the tree line. When I see that he's not there, I begin considering that I may have been overthinking the whole situation. But just as those thoughts cross my mind, I see the same man emerge from the opposite side from where he was previously, at the edge of the tree line. He just stared at me. But I wasn't going to take any more chances, so I made my way down the path and back to my car, making sure to get out of there quickly as I knew he would have to head down the same tight country road. I reported the man to the forestry office, but there wasn't much they could do, so that was it. When I paused at the tree line, when I couldn't see him, for him to have emerged from where he did when I had made it back to the path, he had to have approached from another angle, an angle that I admittedly wasn't checking. But I'm glad I never went further into the forest. I'm glad I followed my instincts. Otherwise, the only way back would have been through him, and God knows what his intentions were. It was a nice autumn night, and my family and I decided to have a campfire. We went outside after it was dark and we were roasting marshmallows and making s'mores while we sat around the campfire talking. The campfire was at the very edge of the woods by our playground, which was quite far from our house since we lived on a lot of acreage. We had spent time outside at night before and everything was okay, but this night we spent a few hours outside and then suddenly we heard something in the woods. We heard leaves crunching and sticks breaking. We thought it was an animal, so we ignored it. We went back to talking, and then we heard it again. It sounded like it was getting closer and closer. The footsteps didn't sound like an animal, and instead it sounded like a human. Then we heard someone cough in the woods. My family and I all stood there in silence because we were freaked out. We shined our flashlights into the woods to see who or what was there. We saw a dark figure of a man hide behind a tree. They were watching us. We left everything outside and ran as fast as we could back to the house. Once we were inside our house, we locked all the doors and windows. My family and I thought that the person watching us this time was the same person as the one that was following my sister a while ago when we were hiking. That's a different story. We were all scared and still to this day have no idea who that was watching us or what they would have done to us if we hadn't run away. After this, we've never had a campfire at night ever again, and instead we do it during the daytime. I know the title of the episode says 3 scary stories, but I'm here, you're here. Let's just do another one. Click subscribe if you're enjoying the stories so far. I'm the kind of guy that likes to go for walks in the woods because it's normally peaceful here in the summer. It's really hot, so I was going at night. I've grown up in this area for a while and I'm currently 20 years old. A couple nights ago, I went for a walk in the woods at night, as one does in the summer. I knew I should have turned back a while ago before I got too deep into the woods because it was quiet. It was more quiet than usual, but I was stupid and I kept going. When I got probably a mile deep into the woods, I came to a lake where people normally go fishing and stuff. It's still eerily quiet. Not long after me getting there, I felt something watching me. I might as well had a kitchen knife in my pocket with how large it was. Now, I did probably one of the dumbest things that I could have done, and I didn't bring a flashlight, so my only light was the moonlight, and I didn't want to leave the lake area because I couldn't see what it was that was watching me until it came crawling out of the tree line. It looked possibly like a dog man, maybe a werewolf or something else. It was furry, that's all I could say for sure because my brain was focused on survival. I grabbed hold of the knife that I had in my pocket because I had no idea what this creature's intentions was, but I wasn't looking to die that night. Now, I was trying to get a size of it, but it was kind of hard for me to tell with it crawling, but once it stood up, it looked probably around maybe 6 or 7 feet. It was big and it felt like it was staring right at me, so I did the only sane thing. I backed up slowly. And well, that wasn't really the smartest idea because the moment I started backing up was the moment that it got on all fours and started running towards me. And then I did another stupid thing. I turned my back and I started running as well. The creature was faster than me, a lot faster, so it caught up pretty quick, and now I was back in the trees so I couldn't see a thing. But I could hear it, so I decided to stop running, which I already made myself look like prey, so now I need to make myself look like a predator, right? So I turned to face what would be attacking me, the knife in hand ready to go, and that helped me none, because it wasn't in front of me anymore. So I turned to everywhere that I heard a sound, which I think it was circling me. There could have been more than one, and I genuinely thought that I was gonna die. Before I heard this loud howl, which is what led me to believe again werewolf or dogman, and I heard the sound of the creature retreating, running towards the howl. I can say for certain that I learned something that night. If you're going into the woods at night, bring a gun and a flashlight. And if you don't hear anything in the woods, don't go in the woods.